welcome back to Geeks and Grounds, a monthly game club and weekly podcast where we play games and brew good conversation together. I'm your host, Jenny Wyndham.
And I'm Joel Thomas.
And I guess we have started a new job this week. I guess in more ways than one.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's very good. New
Yep.
year, new jobs.
New year, new jobs.
I'm the director. I'm the director now. Look into my eyes.
I'm the director now.
I'm the director now.
So I'm excited to talk about our first week on the job here in Control. This is the first episode of 2025, the first game of 2025, and we're playing a community selection. I'm really excited because this is a game that I've been wanting to play for a long time, and I have never given myself the time. Like, I've never allocated the time for it, and now I have to, thanks to everybody. So yeah, I appreciate that.
And it's one of my all-time faves. So very excited to be diving back into the world. And
yeah.
It's interesting. Even as we were just warming up, having some combo, it's like I've already got so much to say about this, and I'm eager to dig in today.
I'm excited to really, let you lead, because at least in this first section of the game that we've played, I was just... the amount of lore and detail is staggering. And so it really did feel like first week orientation at a new job, where I'm like, I'm trying to learn all the lingo that everyone's saying. I'm trying to figure out, like, where do you go to eat lunch? Like,
this
what
is
does
like
everyone do?
This is absolutely the title of this episode, is like new job orientation week 1 or something like that. Oh man, so good.
Oh man. So yeah, I'm really excited because the more I play this game, the more I'm wishing, I'm like, oh, I already can tell this will be a fruitful game to play again, just to like see stuff perhaps once you've like learned a lot of the secrets and go back to the beginning and be able to connect some more of the dots. So I'm really excited for that.
You know, I've got a little bit of I've been wanting to play the Alan Wake games, which I understand are in this universe, but it had been so long since I played Control that I was like, man, I'm not going to remember everything. And so this is kind of perfectly setting me up for an Alan Wake-assance.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I'm... honestly, with how this game is going, I've never been super into the Alan Wake. Like, I appreciate it because I have a lot of friends who have enjoyed playing it. I've seen snippets of Alan Wake games on like streams that I've watched, but I hadn't really figured out, like, nothing had called to me about it. But now that I'm in this universe through Control, I'm like, all right, maybe if the time allows, we'll take a foray into the world of Alan Wake.
We'll take a foray.
Yeah. But before we do that, speaking of games that we're planning to play, that we're looking forward to play, I know we all have hefty backlogs. We have games that we have wanted to play for a long time, but I'm gonna take us to the pastry case, and we're gonna kick off our podcast and our discussion with the games that we're most anticipating for 2025. The pastry case, for those of you who are new or maybe need a reminder, because it is a whole new year.
A whole new year?
It is. I haven't really gotten to say that, do the cheesy joke like, oh, I haven't seen you in a year. So I need to get it out, But the pastry case is where we go to just talk about everything news in the industry, games we're excited about, what we've been engaging with outside of games, our grab bag of topics, and then we'll hop into the monthly brew. So, Joel, do you have any games you're excited about?
I did a top 3, and I will start with one that we actually talked about as a part of kind of our game awards and some of the upcoming announcements. And that is Split Fiction, where you are kind of playing between these two characters, one that's really into sci-fi and one that's really into fantasy, and their worlds are going to kind of collide in some way, and you'll get to play this out. I just love that as a concept, and so getting a chance to see that in action as a game is something that I'm pretty into. We'll go in every should I just go through all 3?
Yeah, go through all 3.
The next one is the follow-up to Ghost of Tsushima, the Ghost of Yotai. So to be clear, I did not finish Ghost of Tsushima. I've played probably 20 hours of the game, and then it refogged my map, which is a part of the story that like you have to go re-explore parts of the map that you've already been to, and it bothered me
Oh.
so much that I could not continue. But the world was beautiful, and like the scenery was stunning, and so getting a chance to revisit that, maybe hopefully without the map re-exploration thing, is something that is really calling to me.
Yeah.
So I have high hopes there. And the last one was kind of just absolute like random thing that I saw while I was on vacay the last couple of weeks. This Tales of the Shire, this
Mm-hmm.
new Lord of the Rings world game.
Yeah.
It looks very cute. And I've kind of been in a Lord of the Rings kick lately, so
Mm-hmm.
it just kind of called to me as like something's like, oh man, I don't know if I have no idea if it's a game that I would be into like long term for like to finish the whole thing, but it's certainly calling to me as I am today.
Yeah. Yeah, I know a lot of people are very excited for that game. This is very, very cute.
Yeah. So, what are you looking forward to?
Um, well, oh, there's so many. I honestly had a really hard time narrowing it down, but I did narrow down three games. So the first one is Blueprints. This is a game that there is a demo available, so you can. I highly encourage you all to play it. It's very fun. It's on Steam. It's a game where you have inherited this manor, and you have to basically to sort of claim it or like earn the right to keep it, in the will of your eccentric uncle. It says you need to discover the room 46. And the house, kind of haunted house style, changes every day. And so what you do as a player is you go through and you basically just like explore rooms, unlock rooms, kind of like roguelite style. Like,
Hmm.
I guess anyone familiar with Hades, like, when you go into the next chamber and you've unlocked like the type of room you want to go to, it's similar to that. And you try to figure out the right path to get all the way to room 46.
Uh-huh.
Really fun. It's they say they're going to have a lot of intrigue and blackmail and like secrets. I don't know if the story is going to be any good, but I'm excited. And it's also got sort of escape room sensibilities. So if you like escape rooms with puzzles and riddles, it's got some of that in the rooms as well. So really cool. And also, I'm a sucker for puns, and so the name Blueprints.
Very good.
If you say the blueprints of a house, yeah,
Mm,
so good.
that's very good.
So yeah, that doesn't have a date. It's just 2025. Promise Mascot Agency. I feel like you would get a kick out of
Oh,
this,
I gotta
Joel.
follow this link.
Okay. So basically, you are an exiled Yakuza member. Your task is to basically stay undercover or hidden at this countryside town and run a mascot agency. And these are kind of like the misfit paycheck mascots. Like there's like a dismembered finger, there's like a really sad tofu block, a cat that loves porn. Like they're all kind of misfits and not really what you would expect for like a cute mascot, but your job is to like be their manager, help them get to gigs and do a good job and like figure out sort of what's going on in the town.
This looks fantastic. I am like so in from this preview that I'm watching.
It is so silly. And so yeah, you're like fighting corruption, you're trying to manage sort of the logistics of recruiting and paying for your mascots to do their work, and it looks great. It's from Kaizen Gameworks, and if anyone's played Paradise Killer, which was an incredibly stylish mystery kind of surreal game, this is the team, and this just looks like it's not going to disappoint. I'm also biased because I was with Kowloon, which also helped fund this game. I'm no longer with Kowloon, but it's like little bragging rights
Oh,
there.
love that.
I'm like I've seen them in development. I've seen how it goes, and I'm very excited for the launch this year. It's just weird.
It looks weird in a delightful way.
hmm and then the last game I wanted to shout out as one I am anticipating is one called Moth Qubit. It's an RPG about a bug who's like a salary man. Um, and then he goes on an adventure within the corporation building, I assume, to basically figure out what the mysterious final process is. So I'm thinking like dark story, corporate intrigue, probably anti-capitalist, I'm not sure. But yeah, it's just supposed to be this really weird, bizarre, quirky RPG, and that just calls my name. I love a good weird RPG.
You know what this character design reminds me a lot of is Mr. Saito that we played back in our first year of Geeks and Grounds, like that kind of
Yeah.
illustrative style. It's not quite as vibrant, but the character
Hmm.
design reminds me a bit of that.
Yeah, definitely is just sort of like the quirky pixel art
Yeah,
sort of energy. Yeah, this is like it just looks very, very
it looks
good.
great.
So the combat system also is really interesting because it's like conversational based because they're like the moth isn't very strong and so you have to use like sharp wit to get you through. And so I think the combat system I think has some fun stuff in store. But yeah, I don't know. This looks like a really weird game. I'm excited to see what if it pans out and if it's good.
Sounds incredible.
Yeah. So also, again, if folks want to get the links to these games, check out the pages. Of course, you can search for them yourself, do that manually, but why do that work when we can get it to you in a newsletter? So
Mm.
if you'd like the newsletter, be sure to sign up for that at geeksandgrounds.com. And every Wednesday, I send out the podcast link, all these links, just so you can have easy finding stuff later.
Yeah. And, join our Discord as well.
Mm-hmm.
Just today, I saw a bunch of community members talking about mouthwashing. It's a great place to get game
Oh my
recommendations.
God.
And
Yeah.
if you know what kind of games you like and you throw something in the chat, I can almost guarantee somebody's got some great recommendations for you. So,
Yeah, it was so heartwarming. Folks were in all throughout sort of the holiday break, like
mhm,
recommending games to each other.
yeah,
Warms my heart.
the cockles of my cold, dead heart.
But what else, I guess, over holiday did you get up to besides lurking in the Discord?
Lurking in the Discord. I'm gonna just kind of speed run a few things that I went through. So in games, I finally got some real foothold time into Metaphor Refantasio.
Hmm.
Loving it. It is like feeding that perfect niche of like my love of anime and love of games. It's very,
Hmm.
very cool. I finished Neva. I did not like the ending, and I was really frustrated
Thank
by it.
you. Thank
Um,
you.
it felt really cheap, and I'm disappointed by that. But the rest of the game I enjoyed. And I did make it to in my annual family Mario Kart tourney. I do want everyone to know that I tied for first and then lost in sudden death. So my middle brother takes the W and the
Ah,
trophy for 2 years in a row, and
next year, someone has to dethrone him.
maybe if we do get this new Switch 2 and a new Mario Kart with it,
Begin the
yeah,
training.
we'll begin the training anew. For books, I know we were texting about this. I finished Wind of Truth, the new Sanderson book for the Cosmere. Y'all, I it was a ride and a half. Every page, it felt like something incredible was happening. I cried multiple times. There are several things at the end that happened that were just like I Journey Before Destination. That's about all I have to say about that. Just absolutely incredible storytelling. And I started reading Heavenly Tyrant, which is the follow up from Iron Widow. Which, if
Mm-hmm.
you would like a book to read that you're into, like mechs, unconventional relationships, and power dynamics, it's a fantastic story. The second one has been great so far. And then I went to the movie theaters and saw a couple flicks. Saw the new Nosferatu, which I loved. I think it's probably my favorite Dracula retelling at this point.
Oh, okay.
And I saw War of the Rohirrim, and I have notes. So
Oh, snap.
generally, I thought it was fine, but there were enough things that happened in that story that I was like, this doesn't make any sense. That
Hmm.
it's not going to get a resounding recommendation from Joel.
Ooh, dang. I was wondering about War of the Rohirrim, so I think I'll probably wait till streaming for that.
I think
based
so.
based on your feedback.
Eek. What'd you
Yeah,
get into?
oh, I wanted to get Nosferatu. We were going to see it and then we got pretty busy over the break, so I
Mm.
didn't get a chance, but I'm hoping to catch it before it leaves theaters cuz it looks really good. And I've heard nothing but good stuff about it.
I had my first argument about it this weekend where a person was
Oh.
like, I didn't like it, and I didn't like that it focused on this character. And I was like, you didn't do the homework.
Oh my gosh. Actually, I did watch something. I was like, what did I watch over break? And I watched the Squid Game 2 season.
Oh.
I okay. I am a fan of the franchise and the IP. Like I think it's a really great concept. Season 1 for me, top tier.
Yeah,
Like
top tier. Absolutely.
incredible storytelling, incredible characters. It is gory, but I think it does so in service of the story it's trying to tell, not just to be like not simply to be grotesque, even though it is very grotesque. Season 2, number 1 is unfinished. They end on the most major cliffhanger. And so it's really frustrating because I didn't know it was a cliffhanger. I thought it would be
Mm.
another enclosed season,
Yeah.
kind of like season 1. And so that sort of like threw me because I was on like the second to last episode and I was like, there are so many threads. This cannot possibly end in like another episode and a half. Yeah,
Mm.
it does not. So season 3 apparently is coming out later this year. It also is frustrating because you can kind of, I don't know, we're gonna see because it's not done, but it does sort of taint the spirit of the Squid Game when you have a company like Netflix really profiting off of
Hmm.
it.
True.
And reportedly, there was an interview that was going around about how the creator he only did the following seasons because he was trying to basically get paid because he was like, I didn't really get much from this first season, I guess. I don't know. I didn't fact check this or anything, but
I actually
um
saw something similar. So
yeah. But yeah, they so it was a good show. I think there's some really interesting characters. One of the idols from Big Bang or not Big Bang. Um TOP. He's in Squid Game, which was like really cool and he plays I think a very underrated character personally.
Hmm.
Um but it's hard and I kind of wished I didn't watch it until the last season, like the third season came out because it feels very unfinished and I think I'm less satisfied because of sort of the expectations narratively I'd set up in my head. So if you
Oh,
haven't
that's too
watched
bad.
it, I would honestly recommend just like waiting until the third season is out and then just go through because you probably will have a more satisfying like arc
Whole
of
story.
what's going on. Yeah, because I don't know, like even like with Severance, for example, even though it ended on such major cliffhangers, I felt like there was enough of a resolution to enough questions that like
It
I
felt
was
like this. Yeah,
satisfied.
it felt like a full season.
Yeah, like a good finale. And this
Hmm.
did not feel like a good finale. So that was a
Bummer.
little sad, but if you haven't watched it, watch season 1, I would say. If you have never watched Squid Games, don't mind a little gore, watch season 1. I think it's really good.
I will say, speaking of Severance, I am powering through a rewatch of season one right now because in a week and a day, the new season two drops, and I have forgotten a
Yes.
lot. So I'm about halfway through the rewatch.
Oh my gosh, Sam and I are doing that as well. Yeah, we're so excited for the next season.
Love
We
it.
should have a waffle party.
We should have a
We should have a
waffle
waffle
party.
party.
I'm in. I'm so in.
We'll capture just like maybe I don't even know if we want the spirit of the waffle party.
Eh.
But we'll have waffles. But yeah, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for Severance. I'm really hoping that one doesn't disappoint. um but yeah, just to go more quickly through, also read Wind and Truth, barreled through that outstanding book. My only qualm is I'm like, oh my god, they Brandon Sanderson answered so many questions in the first half of that book. And then in the last like third, I would say I came up with way more questions that were not answered by the end of that book because he's setting it up for the next arc.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, oh my gosh, I have so many questions, and we're not going to get another book for like 5 or 6 years. So I just hope he writes fast, and because I want to be able to read the whole series.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't know if I will be able to.
If only there were other books that he's written in this universe that you could spend your time digging into that maybe deal with the manipulation of metals. Maybe
I
there's like a
mean,
Sherlock Holmes vibe. Maybe there's
I
like a Western
am
vibe.
rereading Mistborn right now. I'm audiobooking Mistborn because
Nice.
on my walks, I've decided to re-listen to Mistborn, but yeah, I'm just like, if he's doing another 6 book arc and it takes at least 5 years in between, like, are we gonna finish Mr. Sanderson? Are we gonna be done?
Jenny, we're going to be
Ever?
50 by the time this
No,
series is
don't.
done. We will
I
be
don't
50.
see, and that's like incredible but also depressing, and I just don't want to face that. So
Oh, it's the first time I've thought about this.
yeah.
Okay. Well,
So
welcome to
welcome.
Existential Dread Hour. Geeks and
Yeah.
Grounds.
And then games. So folks in the Discord know I rediscovered Balatro. I love Balatro. It's just
Interesting.
so good.
Interesting.
I knew this is the problem. I knew it would be good, and I didn't want to play it because I'm like, I have so many other things to play. I can't be spending time on Balatro, but I have slowed down because of this other game I'm playing. But I will say I finally got my first win with a run over the like holiday break, which I had not gotten one prior to December, and so December was the time I finally got my first win officially, and now I'm able to actually win runs in Pilatro. So I feel very
I've
proud.
still only won once, and it was like 7 months ago. So
It's hard. I'm
it's
like,
tough.
yeah. So I've won twice, so it's not like I've gone on
Damn.
to win millions of Balatro rounds,
Impressive.
but I'm pretty proud. Yeah. Um, I'm trying to challenge myself to go with like different loadouts and different builds because I know I have a favorite type, and it's probably the most basic. Where I'm like 2 pairs, 2 pairs. Let's go 2 pairs. Max out the face cards. Yeah, it's a classic.
It's
But
a good move.
yeah, so I'm trying to challenge myself to do different like builds, but you also have to go with what the jokers give you, and
You gotta believe in the heart of the Jokers.
it the jokers give me 2 pair. What can I
What are you
do?
gonna do?
Yeah, so that's been really fun. I've played so much Infinity Nikki. Have you heard of
I've
Infinity
never
Nikki?
heard of this.
Oh my god. Okay, you can
Looking it
play
up
it on
now.
PlayStation. It is free. It is a gotcha game, but I have not paid anything, and I've had a blast. Infinity Nikki is a fashion dress up game. That's like all it is. It's open world dress up. It's Zelda, open world Zelda minus the puzzles, minus even the combat. There's combat technically, but it's like not combat. It's so simplistic. Complimentary. I like that it's simplistic because you spend all of your time gathering resources so you can make outfits and fight in styling battles. And the story is kind of absurdly dark for how sugary sweet the world is otherwise. Um, I don't really pay attention to the story, to be very honest. I just dress up, and it's so much fun.
Why is every single thing in this game the cutest thing
Yeah,
that has existed?
right? It's
This
absurd.
cat with the yellow hat on, what is happening?
Yeah, that's like your little sidekick, like little brother sidekick, basically. It's a really, really cute game. The attention to clothing detail is absurd. And I just kind of walk around. You have a bicycle, you can bike around, being cute, playing dress up, being cute. That's all it is. It's just playing dress up, being cute. And I love
Sometimes
it.
it's what we need.
My one qualm with it though, this is like there are three skin tones. Very, very white, fake tan, middle tone, and then like one black tone that isn't really, it's like too ashy and cold to like truly be like a good skin tone. And so I would love for them to improve, like just drop in a slider or something. I don't know. Um
Drop in a slider.
I just, it's like, come on, we are in 2025. Do not, like, I'm trying to be like, just let me be a different skin tone than just like super white and not have it be like fake plastic looking. That's my main qualm with it, but otherwise I'm having a great time. I'm already like level, I think I'm like level 15 or so, which is like feels pretty good. I don't normally play these games for very long, so yeah, I'm going to
In the sweet
continue.
spot.
I'm in the sweet spot. Currently trying to get the golden crane to float on. You know how it
Feels
is.
important. Yeah, feels
Yeah,
really important.
it totally is. And yeah, really most of my break was spent playtesting our game, Spirit Swap. So didn't get a whole lot of other additional fun playtime because I was busy working on that.
Mm,
But the game's progressing.
there we
So
go.
there's that.
I
Um
do like that in our notes you have in parentheses Spirit Swap, LOL.
yeah. It's like it feels weird because I'm like it's our game. Like I'm making it so it feels like not, but it is what I played the most. I think I put in I don't know, over 20 hours on that game just in the last week or so. So,
That's a lot of hours.
yeah, for me, that's a ton of hours. I know a lot of hardcore gamers out there are like, well,
20 hours, that's nothing.
hold my coffee.
Hold
Speaking of
my
which,
Mountain Dew Code Red.
hmm
Is that still
but
what
yeah,
gamers drink? I don't know. Does that
it
even exist
is.
anymore?
I think it does. I saw an advertisement for Mountain Dew and it was like, get off your ass, Mountain Dew. And I was just like, that is the literal opposite of what people drinking Mountain Dew are going to be doing. No one drinks Mountain Dew and says, let me go do sports.
I mean, when I was in middle school, I would bring a 20-ounce Mountain Dew
Oh
bottle with
my
me to
God.
play soccer every week. So,
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a youth, you're a cool youth. What can I say, Joel? I was never that
no, it was
cool.
not. It was not cool. That's literally. This is back when like you wore cargo short pockets, and it was like not fashionable.
Oh
And
my
so
God.
basically, my cargo short pockets were just for
For
smuggling 20-ounce
Mountain Dew.
Mountain Dew bottles around. Like, oh, that's why these
That's
exist. Obviously.
amazing. Oh my gosh. I think I remember you telling me that when back when we were working together. And I remember sitting in the office and you saying that, and I was just like, "What? Who is this guy?" Oh, that's
The
awesome.
one and only, y'all.
So good.
Get in the comments. Let us
Oh,
know where you store your 20-ounce Mountain Dew bottles when you're walking
yeah.
around town. Let us know.
20-ounce Mountain Dews. That's formidable. Honestly, though, that's like the strength of being in high school. You know what I mean? It's like nothing can defeat you when you're that young.
I am certain that this is why my bladder to this day is the size of a walnut.
Oh no. My gosh. Could we like sue Mountain Dew for you? This is
This is the
this is
new
the
mesothelioma.
yeah, exactly. Also the American dream. You just sue someone, you make a bajillion schmillion dollars, and then you never have to work again.
Did you or a loved one drink so much Mountain Dew that you cannot stay in the movie theater for longer than 30 minutes before having to go take a break? Give us a call.
Oh my gosh. Yes. I'm glad we've sorted that out for you to be able to go ahead and do.
Do we have something here, team? Let us know in the chat.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Um I think that is it for the pastry case. Notable releases for this week. It is quiet because nobody really launches, like not many people choose to launch their game in January simply because it is when most people tend to be recovering from all the spending they do in December. But I did want to highlight, I haven't played it, but it looked really cute, a platformer called Unless. It is just like pure platforming, minimal story, but if you like games like Celeste, for example, and you want something that's just like a person platformer, might be good to check out. It's very, very cute. So just
Fun.
wanted to shout it out. There's also a free demo, so try the demo. That's free. It can't hurt. Um, all right. I think that's it for the pastry case. Let us move on to the monthly brew. Control.
Control. Chaos Control,
Oh
Sonic 3 in theaters now.
my
Um,
god.
I am so glad that we were playing this game. And
Me too.
I also feel like there's a degree of transparency that I need to provide, which is that because I've already struggled through this, I went into the accessibility settings and I am playing it in a mode where I cannot die and all of the people die with one shot. And so I am
Oh.
just enjoying the like feeling of raw power and finding all of the clues and artifacts rather
Yeah.
than going deep into the battle system and experiences. So if
Mm-hmm.
Jenny is saying like this boss was like really tough, and you hear me say, no, he was really easy, that's why.
You should do that every time though. You should be like, oh my god. Like
You
I did
struggled
that
with that?
first try.
Weird.
I love that. Honestly, that might be like the way to play though, because I presume the way the story makes it sound is that this character and her powers like should be mind-boggling. Like and I think that leads to sort of a nice sort of like not LARPing, but it's like really embodying the character in a way that like you wouldn't if you were struggle busing through, which I will talk about because there,
Yeah.
there was one section in particular um where I was just like, do I need to change this? Or am I bad at
Yeah.
this game?
Well,
So,
the other
yeah.
thing is like because I'm doing this, I'm putting all of my skill points into the fun skills. I'm not boosting my health. I'm
Ooh.
not boosting my energy efficiency. I'm just like improving my magic powers or whatever. And
Yeah.
so I feel badass
That's
walking
a
around in this game.
I also wanted to so my big caveat is have I totally forgot that you have these like points every time, and I know it says like you have 4 ability points or whatever. Every time I'd like go to a control point, I would not upgrade my points. I also forgot that I have mods that I've been picking up. And I realized at the end of my playthrough, the last session I played, I was like, oh my God, I think I have probably stuff that would make my life way easier. And I've been playing and essentially like like raw dogging the game.
You're
Just
doing the thing
not.
that Joel does where he just like totally
Yeah.
misses a foundational mechanic and
Yeah. I'm just like, no, I'm just gonna use the base gun, no mods, not add any mods to myself. Just see how far I can get. So yeah, I think before I play tonight, actually, I want to try and like look and see if I can upgrade a few things.
not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I'm going to add one extra note before we get into like, what is this game about? Why are we
Mm-hmm.
doing this? Which is, I just like last week was watching a TikTok about Control and they described it as the best Star Wars game ever made.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes.
that's the perfect description.
I honestly I wrote down this is what I wish Star Wars was!
Mm,
Exclamation point. I wish
mm,
Star Wars was this.
yeah.
So, yeah. That's awesome. That's great. I love
You are
that.
tapped into the TikTok zeitgeist,
Yeah,
Jenny. That's
I'm with the
incredible.
youths. I get it. I get it. So again, Control is the game that we're playing this month. It was a community vote selection. So again, at the end of last year, we did a ranked choice vote. We had nominations from the community. Then we voted on those nominations and picked essentially the top 6 games to be played this year. And then the rest of the months, I will be, doing my thing and curating some titles.
Hmm.
Um, I was looking up this game and I also thought it was kind of incredible. I don't know how many on average awards games get, but this one received over 80, which is like pretty cool. Um,
That's wild.
I
I had
didn't,
no idea.
yeah, I didn't think it was that decorated or that sort of acclaimed in sort of the award circuit. Again, awards are whatever you make of them, but I thought that was just really interesting. It was received that well because I did not
Hmm.
really pay any attention to it when it came out, including Game of the Year nomination in like 2019, the year it came out. So that was cool. It got a lot of art direction awards and accolades, which I will say immediately when this game came on, I was like, this is a
It
stylish
is.
game.
It is for
Yeah.
sure. I was thinking about how quickly I think Control was one of the first cloud-based games that PlayStation and Switch made available. And so
Oh.
you have that. You have the fact that it like pretty immediately got an Ultimate Edition. It was one of the first games to get a PS5 port once the PS5s came out. Like
Hmm.
this game carries a lot of weight, but I feel like it's not one that a lot of folks talk about much. Maybe.
Yeah, like I think when people talk about it, they're like, "Oh yeah, Control's really good," but yeah, it's not. It doesn't have the same like people don't, at least from my experience, don't bring it up in conversation as much.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's really cool. So I'm very excited to play more of it. Um, I guess are there any like I'd love to go through like non-spoiler reactions to this first section of the game before we really dig into spoilers. Like, what are some of your first impressions as we enter into this game?
Mm,
Sort of what are maybe the base story of what happens, and then we
sure.
can like dig into spoiler stuff.
Yeah, so maybe base story is you find yourself at the bottom of what seems to be like a brutalist architecture government building, and there's no one there. And as you make your way, navigate your way through this building, uh, you become, through the abdication, we will say, of the former director, you become the director of this building called the Bureau of Control. And essentially the basic storyline is that uh, there are paranormal entities that have invaded this government building, and your job as the director is to cleanse them and clear them out because you yourself have paranormal abilities. And there's a whole bunch of lore behind you, behind the director, behind these paranormal entities, behind the building itself. And a lot of the game's exploring and uncovering these mysteries as you kind of cleanse out the Bureau of Control. So, if that is the big picture story, we have to
Mhm.
start by talking style. Uh,
Yes.
so first of all, I was playing this at the same time that I'm rewatching Severance, and there's so much of it that
The
reminds me.
parallels. Oh my gosh.
It has kind of like all of the furniture is that kind of 1950s, 60s, like mid-century modern look. The
Mhm.
architecture is a lot of like concrete, cement based rooms, a la like typical like brutalist architecture, but almost like stylized in a way similar to like Frank Lloyd Wright architecture, like that type of like very rectangular, a lot of like
Mhm.
overhanging balconies above big open courtyard type spaces, but there are no windows anywhere.
Yeah.
And so the way light is used is really fascinating in this game. Uh, and then the style of the people that you encounter in the building feels not of this time. Like you are playing as a modern person, but the style of the people in the game feels like also much older. What were some of the like feelings and tones and moods as you were exploring at the beginning?
Yeah, I think what struck me the most was almost immediately you see a mix of like computer 3D art graphics
Mm-hmm.
and then sort of like FMV video with like real people.
Oh,
And it just added to this like I love that you use like the brutalist for example, like that is like the perfect word not just for the architecture but everything is just stark and cold and sharp and brutal in so many meanings of the word.
yes, all of them.
um and to have that feel also very surreal, mixing in with the sort of multimedia feeling of we have some video footage, for example, that is real life human, you know, home footage, and then we have some that are computer graphics. It just all started feeling like this weird dream, in a way, and I loved that it felt so surreal in that way. um, I think almost immediately the audio is incredible too. um, One of the things that struck me in this first section of the game, there's sort of this incessant chanting that's happening as you explore, and it has not gone away, I think, except for in some rare rooms and rare occasions. And
Hmm.
I think the way that they paid attention to not only this, like, the artistic design, but the audio design as well, has just been so cool. uh yeah, it's
Totally.
really, really, really good. Okay, yeah, I'll pause for now, I guess.
I'd say it's particularly like I if you're a headphone gamer, I feel like this game is like made, like the audioscape of it all is very much made for that. Like the
Hmm.
whispers come from different parts of your headphones, and it's unsettling. I think there are a
Yeah.
lot of moments that are really unsettling. So I think, is that kind of a good enough intro? Can we get into some spoilies?
Yeah, I think from this point on, folks who want to avoid spoilers, this is the time to pause to go and play the game. And we're going to basically start from the beginning, walk through, talk about our thoughts. And we're ending this episode. I guess I'll say it now and then also at the end. We're ending the episode where we unlock the Old Boys Club mission. So next week, that's where we're going to start from. That's where we end from here. So yeah, take it away. How does this whole thing begin?
It begins with uh terrifying narration. You are playing a woman. I have her name written down here.
Jesse?
Jesse Faden. And the opening of the game is you talking to someone, saying that someone has called her. It seems like there's something where she might be looking, or she's trying to communicate with her brother. And it's unclear like what has happened there. But as you begin, as soon as you walk through this door to, you're in this building, which seems to stretch on into eternity, it's empty, like startlingly empty. And you go through your like metal detector, and the first thing that I noticed, I'm really curious about the first thing that you noticed was that felt like that's odd. But for me, the first thing I noticed is that you have a picture, like a painting of the director in the hallway, and right next to that, you have the picture of what appears to be a janitor from
Mm-hmm.
behind, like they're facing away from the painting, if that makes sense. And that to me was like the first time that I was like, something odd. There's something odd here. What was the
Yeah.
first thing for you that was like, maybe, I don't know if unsettling is the right word, but like, what was the first thing that stood out to you?
That was one of the first things, because I believe that janitor was also featured in sort of the montage that happens
Mm-hmm.
as you go through that initial narration. And so I was like, why they're showing this janitor multiple times? Must be important, and it's very weird and unsettling. Agreed. I think the other thing I noticed is when you're exploring this building, that first section, you kind of walk upstairs, you can walk around this sort of like upper lobby hallway area. um, as I was walking, I actually eventually, this is jumping a little bit ahead, but I saw that janitor. You
Mm-hmm.
see him
Yeah.
cleaning, and I was like, oh wait, I feel like, did I go in a circle? And I actually walked back to try and get back to the beginning of the the area that I had originally come from, and the building had changed behind me. It wasn't that like a door had locked, but it was like the hallway that I was walking down was not there anymore.
Yep.
And I wrote down the building changes. Um, because I had no idea. I think now going into it, I'm just, now that I know what I know, I'm just like, well, obviously, but I had no idea that that was something that would occur. And so that like really freaked me out. Uh, and that was one of the biggest things that got me like sort of on the edge of my seat when we got going.
Yeah, and, like, you engage with this janitor, and it sounds like he's already hired you, like, you're going to be working for him, and it's like, "Well, I'm
Yeah.
not here to get a job, I'm here because 'cause I'm looking for something or someone,"
Right.
and he, like, says, like, "No, you work for me," and then all of a sudden, there's an elevator that's available that was
Mhm.
not available before.
Mhm.
Um, and as you kind of make your way through this opening section, you can start finding files and multimedia things, and this is kind of like a major way that this game is going to be explaining the lore of this world to you.
Mhm.
I did write down the first like memo that I found. I didn't
Mhm.
write it down like word for word, but it's essentially a list of items that you are not allowed to bring
Yeah.
in, and so it's like smart devices. Seems that makes a lot of sense. Number two pencils. That's interesting. And
Mhm.
then it says archetypal items of that represent any concept, like a rubber ducky. And it
Or
was
a
like,
ketchup bottle.
yeah. And I was like, what? And like later you find a thing that references like Jungian archetypes, which I meant to research before coming in here today so we could have a deeper conversation about that, but I'll do it
Mhm.
for next week. Um, and so like you're immediately thrown into this world where it's like this building is changing. The stuff in here is weird. The rules are weird.
Mhm.
And then you cut to a little video montage before you get anywhere else of what is apparently the current director resigning, I suppose would be the best way to say it.
I mean, he seems to be shooting himself is what.
Oh, I meant resigning from life.
Oh,
So,
yeah, okay.
hmm,
Yeah, no, it's pretty, like, it's shocking to see. And you immediately are just kind of like, I was just like, what the hell is happening in this building? There's something very wrong in this building.
yes, and, like, as you start making your way through, like, you hear a lot of the story is done through like, you're hearing the main character's voice in her head, like, she's narrating what she's thinking and feeling, and she's
Mhm.
talking about, like, she indicates that she's been looking for this for so long, and she can't believe she's finally here, and, like, we have seen the video of this director, the current director, shooting himself, and then
Mhm.
when you get to the director's door, you hear the bang, like, a couple minutes
Mhm.
later, and so it's like, "Okay, so all this is happening at the same time," and as you barrel in, there's the director on the floor. His sidearm is there. What were some of the things that caught your attention as you got into the director's office?
Um, I think right before this is sort of when we're getting to know Jesse. Jesse's talking aloud. I wrote down who is Jesse talking to because I was like, this. She's not talking like to the air, like, I wonder hypothetically what's going on. She's definitely talking to someone, and presumably that someone is us. And so
Hmm.
then my next question was, who are we? I noticed there are this. Is it fractals? Is that what it's called? There's sort of these
Yeah,
like
it looks like that.
fractal, transparent,
Almost like a
fractal
kaleidoscope.
kaleidoscope image, yeah,
Yeah.
that appears sort of in our, and it's sort of where our, like if you're playing with a mouse or a controller, it's sort of where like your controller would be or your mouse would be. And so part of me is like, okay, we're this thing, I guess, but what is that thing? And so that was something that struck me as we were heading to the director's office. Um,
Hmm.
but what I noticed was I actually went to the window at first because, and it's funny you mentioned like there are no windows here, because that actually was the first thing I noticed. Was I was like, there's this blinding light coming from behind the desk of this director, and I went to it and I was like, I think this is a wall, like it's just a glowing wall, it's not showing anything outside. So that was honestly the first thing that struck
Hmm.
me in going into this office.
It's surreal. She
Hmm.
mentions that like she's had a paranormal experience when she was
Hmm.
11. She mentions that her brother was taken 17 years ago, and you are here to explore and figure out like what happened, and that's
Hmm.
kind of like your mission,
Yeah.
as far as you understand at this point. What's odd though is once you get into this office and the director's laying there with the gun beside him, you start hearing these additional voices kind of talking through your mind. And
Mhm.
they identify themselves as the board. And they are kind of talking to you from what sounds to be like a there's like a pyramid or something. They keep
Yeah, like an
referencing a
upside down
pyramid.
pyramid.
Yes. Uh, and there is a you can find a file that talks about two things that are like really key vocab moments for us. AWEs, which are altered world events, which I think you could think of as like some sort of paranormal something has happened here, and objects of power, which are things that have perhaps embodied some element of this event. And
Mhm.
these are everyday, mundane objects that have like significant power behind them.
Mhm.
And we encounter our first one, which is the director's gun. Um, and you are kind of sucked away. It's unclear if you are physically doing this or what, but you get sucked away into this white world where there's like constructs. I don't know how else to describe it. On the like the ground is not ground. The ground is like these like ever changing platforms that you run your way through while you're
Mhm.
hearing these muffled voices in your head. And you are in the astral plane.
Mhm.
And from here, you can touch the gun, which makes that object of power, that gun, yours. And the next thing you know, you are the director. You are Dorothy wearing the red slippers. You are the running the show.
Mhm. It's like
Thought, yeah.
oh, I was like, it's, I wouldn't say it's failing upward, but it is the easiest, I guess, job interview ever.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like it was interesting because I'm still trying to sort out like what do they mean by objects of power, and I forget what they called the gun in particular. They had a name for like the specific type of object this gun is, and maybe I'm
Mm,
misremembering. Um
they said that the gun had like several names over time. I'm trying to see if I wrote down the actual name for it.
yeah,
But they said that things like it was called at one time Excalibur, and at one time it was
right.
called Mjolnir, and like yeah.
Right. So this is like an object that, because I think this one is just like a special object of power from my
Hmm.
understanding,
Yeah.
because it takes the form of the, I think it says something like in the lore, it takes the form of the weapon that best fits like the historical period and the person wielding it and everything.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really cool. So like some of these objects, from my understanding, can morph and change a little bit, while some of them are a bit more static, is what it seems like. Um,
Yeah. No, I think that's totally true. And like the
yeah.
gun itself seems to not be static. It seems to change as you like mess around
Hmm.
with it. It doesn't feel like a physical firm thing, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Service weapon. That's what I wrote down. It's a service weapon.
That makes sense.
So yeah. Yeah, I thought that was really cool. Well, no, actually I'll let you keep going.
Well, the next thing after you touch the gun is you get one of those interstitials with like a live action human, and it
Hmm.
is the director. And basically, it's like the environment around you kind of turns blue, like these blue lights, and
Hmm.
you see like the shadow of this live action director talking to you. Later, you'll be able to unlock these and watch like the full video clips. But
Right.
you just get like a section of it when you're having that exact moment. And he's
Hmm.
like, you're the director now. Uh, and like your job is to take care of the oldest house, which is where you are. This
Hmm.
building is in and of itself an object of power called the oldest house. It will constantly be rearranging, and your job as a director is to like maintain it and keep it safe. Um, yeah. So you said you had something, and I want to talk about the first thing that I noticed after this.
Oh, I was gonna say, when you leave the room, I guess, is this jumping ahead or is this like
Well, yeah, I
okay?
guess what I will say is while you're in the room,
Hmm.
as you start looking around, your picture is appearing in the room is
Yeah.
places. So it's like, and you're wearing like this nice suit, and it's like oh, like the house has already responded to you being the director now.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I noticed when we went out into the hallway. I didn't actually look in the office area for that, but yeah, I thought it was incredible that basically as soon cuz you've seen this guy's picture like everywhere.
Yep.
You've seen pictures of someone named like Darling. So it's like you've seen all of these portraits and to see you up there throughout the hallways is pretty incredible. That was like a fun moment. Also when you open the door, I think that's where I can't remember, I can't tell from my notes, but it looks like that's where I got my first jump scare from this game. Because you open the door and it's like everything is red, like dark red, and you see these like hanging bodies down the hallway like in the distance,
Floating in the air.
and that scared the living daylights out of me.
It's
It was
scary.
terrifying.
It
I
is
was just like, I'm
scary.
not ready for this.
Oh man, it is so true. And like the combination, because you called out like earlier, like you hear that chanting. The combination of the
Hmm.
chanting, the bodies dangling in the air, and the all of the lights turning red, the emotional effect of that and like the tonal effect of that is so strong. And like it's
Hmm.
hard for me to think of games that have had a stronger immediate tonal impact on me.
Yeah, that honestly, like that image is burned into my head. It is so striking. I loved it. And honestly, from that point, like I was already on the ride, I was on the ride, I was enjoying it. That moment, I was like, all right, I think I'm really gonna like this. um, and it's your first time you start to be able to explore because now you have the directorial permission. You can open some doors now. Um, not all the doors, which I thought was interesting. Even though you're the director, you still have to earn clearance.
I To
Um,
me, the biggest plot hole of this game is that you're the director, and it's like the whole game you are like, oh, I can't go into that door, I don't have clearance. Like it doesn't make any
right?
sense to me.
I know. I'm like, what? Just this is like some sort of puppet king moment. This is just a title.
Yep.
um, but yeah, you're exploring, and it's the first time you get to go out, and now you're starting to combat these people who are now corrupted by something, and we will find out what that is later, but all you know is that they're chanting, and some of them are dropping down to the ground and coming for you.
Yeah. Oh, and also like the first time you hear that chant, you start being affected by it, and that
Yes.
kaleidoscope thing kind of protects you from it, which is like
Yes.
a central part of why maybe you were selected. And like we don't really know, but like
Mhm.
you seem to be resistant to this chanting.
Mhm.
What was the sensation for you actually like shooting, and also you have like these telekinetic like force push powers, like what was your sensation like going through and having that first combat experience?
I mean, honestly, lots of weird mixed feelings. So first of all, everyone is human. Like they don't look like monsters or anything like that. Like in this first area, these are all sort of like soldiers, and so I was kind of like, why are they like? I just personally don't like doing shooting games, and I don't like shooting people in games, and so I was just like thinking about that. Um, I will say, from a mechanical standpoint, the PlayStation controller, great haptics. It did
Yeah.
feel very satisfying
Yeah.
to not only use the sort of like teleporting powers where like Jedi minds bringing stuff in and pushing it out, but like having the gun, that felt really good. I think it was interesting exploring because I still was just kind of like, if all of these people are like where are the people and what is happening here, where like literally these aren't enough people floating to be everyone in the office. You know what I mean? So like what happened to everybody else? And that was like my first big question
Oh,
sort of going
that's
through.
good. I didn't think about
Yeah.
that. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh
Ooh,
no.
no. Oh no.
But
I'll
yeah.
I think I'll just chip in that like the first time I used the like telekinetic force push power, the sound that it makes when it does that
Mm,
feels so cool, and the way it like destroys the environment beneath your feet to like it like destroys the concrete.
yeah. Even the melee, like punching, you don't necessarily punch holes in the walls, but like using the melee to just like break stuff is super satisfying. I was curious because at the very beginning of the game, walking through, it's before you get the gun, before you get anything, I bumped into a desk and stuff like really fell apart.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yep.
what is up with this game that I can't even walk into a desk and have every, and then I understood. I was like, oh no, this is intentional.
You're gonna want that.
Yeah, we're meant to destroy everything in this building.
So you're right, like it's uncomfortable, like you're shooting these people, you don't know what they're doing, you don't know
Hmm.
why. There are also these giant vaults all over the place, like giant
Yeah,
steel vaults that are
it's
just
a
in like,
shelter.
yeah, shelters in the places where like there's just cubicles. So imagine that you're at the office and like you, I don't know, work in insurance, and behind you is a giant six-inch steel door that says shelter on it that's just always there.
Yes, I did write down. Okay, so there are some like wild things that are just like scattered throughout this world that give you just details on what it's like to work here. I think some of the post-it boards or notice boards had like book club stuff where in my head honestly I kept reading like game club and I was like geeks and grounds.
Oh,
Yeah, cute. But no, they have like a book club that they do. There are lots and lots of signs, and this is I wrote down what is up with all the mold and spore posters because there's a lot of like wash your hands so the mold doesn't get you. And I'm just like, that's a weird notice to have in an office building. So yeah, I think this, and there's also a lot of notices of like, if you, I forget the wording, but it's like if the building shifts and you go overtime, you can't charge that, or like you can't count it as
yeah.
overtime. And
Yeah,
so
that
it's
was
like,
really funny.
it's like, okay, wow, corporate greed here. But also it means, okay, this is an unconventional workplace where people are dealing with, um, yeah, mold spores and building shifts and who knows what else.
Yeah.
Hence the shelters.
Hence the shelters. It's interesting too. At one point, you find a thing that talks about how it was in 1964 that
Hmm.
the old house or whoever was running it joined the Federal Bureau of Control. Like this house has existed, this like quote house has existed as
Hmm.
a place for much longer than it has been a like a government building,
Yeah.
which raises a ton of questions to me about like, well, what did this house used to look like? This is obviously like they said 1964 and this looks like it's the 60s even though it's like a modern day story. Like does the house change to represent the time of the people who are like in control of it? What's happening? What is this house?
Hmm. It's the oldest house.
The oldest.
um, but yeah, as we walk through the office building, we eventually get to a point where we can basically it says we can cleanse this control point, and it's sort of this central area. You see the emblem of the bureau in the middle of this sort of like sort of in like descended sort of lobby area, and so you clear out a bunch of the enemies and you can cleanse it, and you actually see like the block structure sort of retracting back and opening back up,
Yeah.
and letting you create sort of this safe zone for yourself.
Right. Yeah. And it's interesting. It's like, oh, I get to influence. It's not just that the building's going to
Hmm.
be changing on me, but like something I am doing is influencing like what's happening with this building.
Control that maybe we're exerting over the building. What? No. No.
It's too much. So after you cleanse this point, you find that there were a handful of people that were kind of bunkered in one of those shelters, and they have these circular, almost looks like speakers that they're wearing on their chest.
Hmm.
And they indicate they're wearing something called an HRA, which is a Hedron Resonance Amplifier, which essentially seems to be protecting them from this chant, which we get to name the hiss.
Hmm.
The hiss has not been able to affect them because they have these chest pieces on, and then you're
Hmm.
naturally protected from this presence that's within you. And because you've done this, because you've freed these workers, you meet Emily Pope, who is an assistant of Dr. Darling, who seems to be one of the chief kind of architects, like scientific leaders of this place.
Mhm.
And basically she's going to be the person who kind of helps. She's your man in the van. She's going to help kind of direct you as you go through this experience. What were some of your first like thoughts, like encountering this group of like refugees?
Um, I most of my attention was spent on Emily because she's the one who we talk to the most.
Hmm.
Um, it's really interesting. So I feel like while she's not deceiving me, I'm not necessarily suspicious of her. I still feel like we don't have the whole story from her. I think there's a lot more to her character and maybe her own like there I feel like she's going to have an agenda of her own. We just don't know what it is yet.
Sure.
Um I think I will say she it was just nice to have a friendly face and to have someone to be able to answer our questions. But it is interesting to me that like she, along with a few other, I guess maybe researchers or bureau agents, um, like how did they get to safety? Are they communicating with other people? How are they doing so? There are a lot of questions I have in terms of like, were they planning on just staying in the shelter forever? Like, what was going on? And so I think I'm looking forward to playing more and sort of figuring her out because I think there's more to her than just like, I'm going to answer your questions.
Yeah. It's interesting too because like they had kind of set me up. When I remember this feeling the first time I played the game, to think that I was not going to be running into other people. That like everything I was going to learn about this world, I thought I was going to be learning through the artifacts that I'm finding, or these like
Mm,
random like live action videos that keep popping up. And I really liked that there was another character that I got to interact with. I think
yeah.
it would have definitely gotten old to make the entire discovery of this game like be
Hmm.
artifacts that you're finding.
Yeah, it's interesting because we played. I mean, one of the games we talked most about last year was A Thousand Times Resist, and I remember thinking it was really interesting because Remy talked about how they intentionally did not create like a ton of lore that you found through artifact materials or like notes or anything like that. All of the lore was given to you through this dialogue with characters. And so it is really interesting kind of going not completely 180, but we're now on sort of the other end of the spectrum at least, where a
Yeah.
lot of this lore is coming from these sort of like source materials, I guess,
Yeah.
within the world. So that was kind of fun. But it's nice having the dialogue and another character. Um, yeah.
I agree. And like you kind of have Jessie, the main character, kind of running through in her own mind like, can I trust this person? Do I
Hmm.
tell them about you, this presence that's in my mind?
Right.
And you know, at this point they've decided not to. But you kind of get the premise that like, okay, I need to go and cleanse the all the different control points in the old house,
Hmm.
which is kind of like this is now my objective. There are these, it sounds like four kind of leaders within the Bureau of Control that have somehow exerted influence. We don't know if they're alive or dead or transformed or what.
Hmm.
But they have answers to my questions. And we finally get Jessie kind of speaking for herself to say, like, I had an encounter with the Bureau of Control these like 17 years ago with this like paranormal experience that she had. And she has been actively looking for them ever since. So it's not that she's just stumbled into this building. It's
Hmm.
not that you know, she's just here to like cleanse this place and move on. Like she wants to be a part of this world, which I thought was a really fresh, it felt fresh to me, like
Hmm.
having a character that's like, no, this is not just like I'm here at the whims of fate, but like I have the agency that this is like in line with my own goals and aspirations,
Hmm.
as opposed to like the reluctant hero. I thought that was like a
Right.
really interesting take. I don't know, I enjoyed that.
Yeah. No, I didn't really think about it like that, but I agree. I like, and sometimes it's a little bit funny, but because when you first meet her, right, you don't know why she's there. And so I'm just like, this lady just walks into a building and is like cool with all the stuff that's happening. But what we learn, of course, like it wasn't just a building that she walked into. She probably expected weird stuff to happen, so it's not as out of the blue as it was maybe for someone like me. But yeah, it is kind of cool that she's just like, all right, I'm the director, what do I do next? And so
Yeah.
yeah, that is kind of fun.
So I think, there's a lot of lore for us to discuss that we're going to uncover throughout the rest of this like section that we played through, but like
Hmm.
the rest of the story is very simple. Like you're making your way to control points. You are going to try and find a couple of these leaders. I think you find one of them.
Yeah, it's like Thomasy or
Yeah,
something.
Tomasi, I think, something like
Tomasi.
that. Who's like the director of communications. And you're going to do some side jobs for the janitor who seems to have a lot of influence in this house.
Very strange amount of influence.
Yes, but like the whole story for this whole section of the game is like, how do I unlock the doors to get to the places that I need to get to?
Hmm.
um, yep.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of highlights in terms of like plot. So what's really interesting to me is I wasn't sure, because I don't know anything about this game, but objects of power apparently are kind of like all over the place. And so one of the things that I thought was really interesting as we moved through this first section of the game was like a lot of your missions and some of the side quests I saw popped up that I didn't get a chance to do yet were like, this object of power is hanging out here. Um, you go and collect like the floppy disk, I think, and that's
Yeah.
actually what ultimately gives you like your full telekinesis powers. You got like the hotline, the like fancy out object of power phone,
Yeah. Right.
like. Um, so I think what was really interesting for me was seeing how just prolific, like objects of power. Pff, which one do you want? I got
Yeah.
plenty. It's like it had very much that vibe, which I
Yeah.
thought was funny.
And here's like your next vocab word, everyone. Like,
Hmm.
you have objects of power and then you have altered items. So both of
Yes.
these are like paranormally infused items, but the difference is objects of power are linked to the astral plane, which is why you get teleported there, and if you touch them they like change your powers, versus
Hmm.
altered items that are not linked and are just like volatile items. The other one that I thought was really cool is the translocative light switch, which essentially
Yes,
like you
that's
pull down 3 times and you're now in like an old school
Ocean
hotel.
View Motel. That was the other thing I
Yeah.
thought was really interesting.
Oh, I love this.
That for me was so cool because that opens up the door, like literally the door, to potentially other universes. And in my head, like I was just like, oh man, if I was making a game, you could totally just make a sequel that's like, what's the other side of this door in the Ocean View Motel? Like,
Yeah.
it's so cool. All the parallel universes that potentially are there, other worlds or locations. Very, very cool spot.
And they keep referencing this Ocean View Hotel. Like, it sounds like people are looking for it in the real, like bureau workers are looking for it in the real world to see if they can like find it. Because basically once you're in the hotel, you're just going through those doors until you end up back at the Bureau of Control. So like,
Hmm.
it's almost like both the bureau, the oldest house, and the hotel or motel are like nexus locations where like you can start there and go to these other places.
Hmm.
um but how they are, if they are grounded in the real world at all, feels kind of like a mystery right now, and I think that's
Right.
pretty interesting.
Yeah. Um, I guess one of the other things I thought was really interesting, I need to like look it up or find someone who's done it. But Ati, I think she says something about how she thinks he's Swedish. And I think there's points where he's speaking in another language.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I don't know what he said because there's no sure they just like don't translate it for you.
Yep.
So I have made a note to myself in my game notes to try and look up translations to figure out what he's saying. I don't know if it's just funny flavor text or if there's like secrets within it, but I thought that was interesting too.
Could be fun.
Hmm.
uh so a few other things that kind of stood out during this. First, you find that there's a lot of distrust. So Trench is the old director, and
Hmm.
he is worried that like some of his leaders are traitors and they are doing something nefarious. It sounds like the one that is the least trusted is Darling, this kind of
Mm-hmm.
lead researcher scientist. One of the things they talked about is that Darling and Trench uh, found something that was just too dangerous several years ago. And so I honestly don't remember this plot point. So it's like, was this connected to the same event that Jessie was a part of like 17 years ago that she like lost her brother to the Bureau of Control to? Like, I don't know if those things are connected at all, but like it sounds like Darling knew something was coming, was
Mm-hmm.
handing out these HRA speaker devices a couple of weeks
Yeah.
before the hiss came. So they knew something was up, and it's unclear if they caused it, if they're just preparing for it. We have not met
Mm-hmm.
them yet, so we don't really know. Do you have any theories at this point?
Um, I don't. Honestly, so much of this first part was me just grappling with vocabulary, locations, and people. I didn't get a ton of theory crafting in. I do feel like Darling had, I think he had something to do with the hiss. I don't know if he like intentionally brought it in, but I think something he's done unleashed it upon the Bureau. There's no way that he would have had all of that preparation just because. And he, if he was, I think of a person who was like, not altruistic, but I think if he wasn't the person who caused it and had something to cover, he probably would have been more open about why he was giving all of this or preparing them. So I think the fact
Yeah.
that he did not say why everyone should wear these HRAs, but everyone should just have them like a life jacket. It's like, well, why are you giving me a life jacket? Do you know if there's a leak in the boat? Did you cause the leak in the boat? You don't want us to get mad? You know, it has that kind of energy with it.
That is a really good. The leak in the boat is a really good metaphor.
um,
Uh,
but yeah, I think Ati is a character that I took some notes on and sort of like wrote down just thoughts.
mhm.
I think what's really interesting is I actually got brought back to when I was a student teacher. And one of the things I was told as a student teacher, my mentor told me, was as a teacher, always like be respectful and kind to everybody, but like be really respectful to the folks who do the tech in your school and to the janitors in your school because they are the ones that actually like make things happen. You know, like you don't want to get stuck with a tech issue or with like I don't know a kid pukes on your floor and the janitor like doesn't like you.
Yep.
And I think it's really interesting that Ati, who seems to have a lot of power, is in a position that most folks, you know, like at least in the US, would probably consider like not very highly. So I think there's some really interesting dynamics there between his position of like in the workplace versus the respect that seems to be paid to him by folks that we meet. Which we hadn't talked at all about one of the last missions we do in this section, which is like the whole maintenance area and like the power I don't know,
Yep.
power plant override stuff. But that's really where we see our first, we meet Chief, is it Arish? I think. Arish.
Sounds right.
Um, we meet him and he talks about how like Ati is his coffee buddy, but we see a note where he's just like, if anyone has like a problem with Ati or something happens, come to me first. Like, do not do not say no to this guy.
Don't
Yeah.
disturb him.
Don't disturb him. Let him do what he needs to do. If you need something, come to me. Um,
Yep.
which is
And
really,
there's
yeah.
like a throwaway line when you re-encounter him again after you've been playing for a bit where he's like, "Oh, I'm glad that they agreed that you work for me now," or something like that. And it sounded like
Mm,
there's a note that you can find at one point where it sounds like the director is like reporting to Ati. So it's like something
interesting.
is going on. Like the relationship here seems to be that like I wonder if Ati predates the Bureau of Control and like he was in the oldest house before the Bureau found it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we kind of learn that like these control points are ley lines. I love a ley
Mm-hmm.
lines within the house, and that basically Ati and the director have identified that like if they lose control of these ley lines, they lose control of the house. which is why
Mhm.
it's so important that they like take care of it. But what is the deal when you meet Ati and he is so casual? He's like, I'm about to go on vacation. You need to go clean this shit up. Like, his energy is so like, they're vermin in here and not like the world is ending, which is everyone
Yeah.
else's take, you know?
Yeah. Well, and okay. So the missions in the power plant are especially interesting because you're supposed to go and basically fix like the coolant pumps and like get through uh security override to like just fix up what's going on. And one of the things that was really weird is as you go into the pipes of the power plant, I think,
Yeah.
like in the coolant plant, there's also this like sludge clogging up everything.
His old enemy, the clog, is what he calls
Yeah.
it.
And so I'm like, you could read it and listen to this line, be like, ah, yeah, the janitor, of course, would be like, my old enemy, the clog, because of course he's had to deal with clogs. But I'm like, is this like an entity or something that we should be concerned about that's like a bit more sentient than just like sludge that's clogged up a drain, and
Yeah.
everything feels more sentient than I would anticipate it being in this game, whether it be
Yeah.
the clog, honestly, the gun. I think I forget where, but I have a line here and I don't know why I wrote it. But I said, is the gun sentient? Like, did the gun do it? And I was referring to Trench dying.
Yeah.
Like, did the gun do this more so than Trench doing this? So yeah, I feel like everything has more sentience than I would have anticipated.
I also I get the sense that the clog and these spores are different problems than the
Yes.
hiss, right? Like the hiss
Yep.
feels like a new unknown thing. The mold, the spores, the clog, like that feels like a long-standing issue that they've had to deal with. And
Mm-hmm.
I to me that's just like a really interesting like confluence of circumstances, and I don't know, maybe it's red herring.
Yeah.
Who's to say?
Well, as someone who is having house, not troubles necessarily, they're not all troubles, but it's like one thing happens to a house and then it's like the next thing will happen to your, it's like when it rains, it pours. So maybe the hiss was the thing on top of everything else that was already going on with the house.
Yeah, agreed. Oh, hey, speaking of, did you find the carousel horse yet?
No, I have the mission, but I haven't done it
Okay.
yet. I was planning on doing that actually this session.
It only takes like a minute. It's a very,
Oh,
very short
really?
side quest. Yeah, the objects
That's
of power
okay.
missions are super short. They're just trying to give you new powers.
Yeah.
Because, and I bring this up because like the last kind of big beat of this game is you decide to come clean with Emily and tell
Yes.
her a lot more about this entity and your experience. And so like you learn that 17 years ago you and your brother found a slide projector that
Mhm.
opened doorways or portals into other worlds, and baddies started coming through. And then this entity that you have been talking to, that you have named Polaris, also came
Mhm.
through to protect you from the baddies. And so, one of the things that you are doing here is to try and find your brother because you kind of feel like you abandoned him, but also like you're a part of this world,
Mhm.
and these different objects of power resonate with you because you have these connections and these kind of powers. And so I thought that was really interesting. It sounds like there's still more to be uncovered. Like she didn't share everything with Emily, but
Right.
what how did you feel like knowing there's some trust issues there, like coming clean at the end?
I honestly thought it was a really interesting choice. Um I feel like the way Jessie talks, she seems like she really wants to trust people, but then like rationalizes herself out of it versus the other way around. Like she continuously the whole time we're playing in this first section is like, "Oh, should I tell Emily? I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I think I'll wait till next time. She hasn't earned my trust yet." And it's like she wants to talk to people about it. It feels like she wants to communicate about what's going on to hopefully maybe find some answers.
Yeah.
And so I think it was really interesting. Yeah, it was interesting that she chose that moment to do so. Um, I was also curious because that's when we get the test results from Emily, because Emily ran like some tests on us. And I guess our power is really high according to Emily's readings, but also we have powers that Emily did not expect, because that's when we learn, like, we use the control points to teleport. And Emily's like, no one else uses it. Like, you're the first person to do this. So it's like, not only are we high in terms of the readings that they already know and keep track of, but like we seem to have stuff that doesn't even register in
Mm.
terms of their experience. um so yeah, that was a really interesting part. We have a name, I guess. Like, what was really fascinating to me is this gave me part of an answer for the thing that I was feeling as a player, where I'm just like, I'm not playing Jesse. Like, I'm controlling Jesse, but I'm technically playing Polaris.
Mm.
But I don't know as Polaris, like, what my purpose is with Jesse. Like, am I here simply to protect her? Am I here because I am bound to her, like an object of power of some sort? Um, what is my deal? And so I'm really curious to see if we get more answers and figure out more of Polaris and like what is the history and like the potential future there.
Yeah. Totally agree. It's interesting because like I hadn't this line of conversation around who we are as a player is not one that I really thought about at all when I played it the first time. And I
Mm-hmm.
really like this because when you think about like people who have like ESP or like like the storylines like, oh, I can kind of like sense when something's coming. It's like, how would that feel? Well, it'd probably feel like someone directing your gun to make the right headshot for this
Mm-hmm.
baddie, right? Or like I have a third person view of the dangers that are around you, and so I can help you identify and take care of them. So like
Mm-hmm.
I really, really like this take, Jenny. I'm gonna be really like noodling on this for the
Yeah.
rest of the game.
I guess I feel bad for Jesse because I am if I'm Jesse's guardian angel Polaris, I'm not doing the best job in some of the combat
I mean, I will
situations.
say you're Polaris with access to an accessibility menu,
I
so
am, but I also am stubborn.
I think honestly, I really even the first time I played through this, I felt like the frustration challenge level of this game was right at about the desired of like frustration that I like to have.
Yeah.
I have noticed though that as I'm playing this kind of in God mode, that the the tracking and aiming is not always right. Like I have
Mm.
like auto headshot turned on or something like that. And it's like, well, I've locked onto the target. I can see that my cursor is 3 inches to the right of their head. What is going on?
Oh,
And
weird.
so, and I think it feels more like a glitchy thing than like a by design thing.
Right.
But I don't know. I know that you mentioned that there's some like frustration with like controls and things like that, and I wonder if there's like actually something wrong.
Yeah, I think my biggest and it wasn't even frustrating. It was kind of one of those like, oh my gosh, am I just like not good at this moments was it feels like the waves of enemies, particularly at the maintenance coolant area, um, where it's the first time you start getting the enemies that really explode.
Yeah,
There was a wave of enemies there, and like right after that section where I was just like, I feel like I have been fighting waves and waves and waves of enemies and they're not stopping. Am I supposed to stay here? am I
yeah.
am I just bad? Like, am I supposed to like defeat them in a certain way and I'm just not doing it? And so I think that is the biggest like sticking point for me. Um so far is just those two battles in particular, the one right before coolant, right after coolant, where I was just like, I feel like this is lasting way too long
Mm.
and it's making me feel like I died twice at the coolant one just because I was like trying to figure out what I was supposed to do if it wasn't to defeat everything. But it ended up being defeat everything. So
I will say, even when I played this the first time, I had a lot more luck just going around and clearing out all of the baddies before trying to solve the puzzles.
yeah.
I remember that distinctly.
Yeah, no, I
Um,
wasn't even trying to solve puzzles. This was like before you even get into the area.
yeah.
It was sort of in that like dome sort of circular thing. And just more of these explodies kept spawning, and I'm just like, when does it end?
Yep, that's real. Yeah, that's a challenging part for sure.
But yeah, so far I am liking the game. Um, I feel like again this first section I was just trying to like get my bearings. I didn't really have enough capacity to sort of theory craft because I was like I don't even know what I'm theorizing around at this point. But
Sure.
now I think in this second section, I'm excited because I feel like again orientation is done. First week on the job done. I feel like I can sort of get my feet under me and like really start to dig into what is happening in this game.
Yeah. Well, I am eager to dig in more. Like, I feel like a lot of the gameplay feels very consistent from this point on out. Like, there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot less mechanical learning to do. So it's just like survive the baddies, find clues, and like that's really all there is left to do. Um, Clean out your control points, find clues along the way, and I think it'll be interesting to see how that informs our conversation in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. Do you have any like? It's hard because I mean you've played the game, so I'm not going to ask you to be like, what do you think's going to happen next? Because
Mm.
I feel like you generally have an idea. But I guess what are some things you feel like? Do you have any highlights or things to maybe keep an eye out for, in terms of if we've never played going into the next section?
I think, well, maybe the thing that was most spectacular to me about this game is the thing that I would say to like just appreciate as you're playing through, and that is like
Mm,
how they play with space in within the environment. Like I am captivated by this very like rigid cement concrete architecture that is constantly changing.
hmm
And, I think about like House of Leaves, where you have
mm,
a house that's different on the inside than it is on the outside, something like that. And to me, that is the thing that I most appreciated about this game is how dynamic the environments feel, given that you're inside like this brutalist building.
mm. That's awesome. I love that. Um, cool. I guess are there any last things you wanted to make sure cover in the game itself?
Not for this one. Eager to dig into next week's section. Any of you that
Yeah.
want to join me in God mode, let me know in the chat if you're playing along.
Awesome. Well, so again, just as a reminder, we are going to be playing basically from the mission Old Boys Club, um, all the way up until we unlock the Face of the Enemy mission. So all of that's available in the playthrough guide. If you go to our website, geeksandgrounds.com, you'll see the link to 2025 brews. The playthrough guide is linked there. Gradually, I will be updating the website. I know I think I said in like the last podcast or two podcasts ago, I was like, I'm gonna have the brand new website ready. No, sorry.
Gonna take some
Break
time.
break
Yeah.
it was not enough time. So but I do have all the 2025 games on there, which I ended up for all the games that for sure are going to be like assigned essentially to a month, they're all there. There are 3 months where I'm going to keep it secret just because I want some flexibility, but everything else is up on that page. So you can like keep an eye out for sales, play ahead if you're like, I know I'm going to be busy this month, but I can play it ahead of time. Like, just allows a bit more flexibility in planning. So, yeah, that is it, I think.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us at Geeks and Grounds. We look forward to chatting with y'all next week and hearing about your control experiences. As you feel a kaleidoscopic presence in your life, make sure you let it draw the crosshairs of your gun to wherever it needs to go.
Oh my God. All right. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.
Bye.